Welcome to Machine Minds, where technology and humanity meet. I'm your host, Greg Tarusian, founder of Samson Rose, a recruiting and search business focused on the robotics and AI industries. The Machine Minds show is where we dive deep into the intricate world of robotics and artificial intelligence. As a staffing industry leader with a passion for the frontiers of technology, I'm pleased to be bringing you intimate conversations with the founders, investors, and trailblazers who are at the heart of the AI and robotics revolution. In each episode, we dig into their journeys, the applications of the products they're working on, and the breakthroughs that are shaping our future. Join us as we explore how these machine minds are transforming the way we live, work, and understand our world. Whether you're an entrepreneur, a tech enthusiast, or just curious about this amazing field, you'll learn something new with each episode. Let's delve into the extraordinary. Let's delve into Machine Minds. And I'm joined today by Daniel Dreymann from Agot AI. Daniel is the Chief Product Officer, and I'm really happy to have him here on the show. We've been speaking for quite a while, so thank you for joining me, Daniel.
Thank you for having me, Greg. Pleasure.
Perfect. So yeah, let's jump into it. I briefly wanted to give an overview or basically hand it over to you for a quick overview about the technology that Agot AI does, its focus and emphasis in the quick service restaurant industry, and how you're bringing AI to the space and helping the companies, the restaurants, as well as the consumer.
Perfect. Happy to do that. So Agot is focused 100% on restaurants, mostly in the quick service restaurant space, but we also now have some products for full service restaurants. And I can touch upon them later. But the biggest problems that the restaurant industry has, are on labor, low margins, right? Which they need to be efficient with capital and expenditures, and it's a high pressure environment. There was an interesting article earlier that was just published this morning on Restaurant Business News about the fact that the good general manager can boost the revenue of a restaurant by 25%. Mm-hmm. When you look at large chains with hundreds of restaurants. And unfortunately, it's very difficult to get the right general manager, a superstar in every single location. So sure. What we want to believe is that with artificial intelligence and with computer vision, we're able to augment the capabilities of any general manager and have him or her perform at a level that's higher by a few notches than absent the technology. This applies both in what's called in the restaurant industry, the back of house and the front of house. So things that happen in the kitchen and behind the scene, things that are visible to the customer in terms of the guest experience and so forth. Provide the most mundane, example. When you are at a fast food restaurant and you want to you finished your meal and you want to empty your tray and the trash bin is full and you are struggling with it, that's not a great experience, right? Right. What if the general manager could, with hawk eyes, look all the time at all the trash bins and say, hey, we need to empty this trash bin, right, before it overflows. Well, computer vision can do it without any effort, right? Say, hey, let's go and empty this trash bin before this bad experience happens to the guest. Again, we do much more than that, but as an example of how we help staff and management to perform at a higher level, that would be a good example.
Yeah, it's being a lot more proactive and getting ahead of a problem before it occurs.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. We do the same in the kitchen as well. Our flagship product, the company was founded around the idea of improving order accuracy, which is basically addressing a problem that the industry has, where on average, and again, it varies from one store to another, but on average, 10 to 15% of orders delivered in the drive-thru are not 100% perfect. They either lack an ingredient, could be condiment or something like that. It could be something major, like you ordered 3 tacos and you only received 2, right? And then you go home and you see that there's not enough. You didn't get exactly what you ordered, that you are angry at the restaurant, and that happens at the cadence of 10 to 15% of all orders. So our ability with computer vision to confirm that the guest is receiving exactly what they ordered helps the restaurant perform better service. So it's good for the restaurant, it's good for the guests.
100%. Yeah, couldn't agree more. I think back to my time. So before I started Samson Rose, I was director of talent acquisition at Sweetgreen, as I'm sure you remember. So you don't realize how much goes into the fast casual, quick service restaurant space, whether you're doing food prep, whether it's dealing front of house, like you say, with the customer in terms of experience, and then the turnover, because it's such a challenging environment and challenging place to work. Just over 100% turnover in a year blows my mind. I don't know any other industry or any other space that is that high. And you've got to attribute some of that to the working environments and how much that is put onto individuals as well as the management. Because the stat that you shared there about having a manager or a great manager improving it by 20-25% is huge. And it's true, because you'd see it when you zoom back and look at the restaurants that do perform, who their leadership is, what their experience is, and also from a employee satisfaction standpoint, when they do reviews, that manager always scores higher.
Absolutely. And while I do like the general manager angle and the fact that we can augment their capabilities, if you go back to the fact that the line employees have a turnover of more than 100%, right? Being able to equip them with tools that allow them to perform at a higher level is going to reduce stress. As a result, also reduce turnover, right? So people will stick longer because there's less of a cognitive load when somebody is helping them. This somebody is actually not a person; it's a technology, right? It's a bit akin to a spell checker, right? So nobody, when you write a document and you get those squiggly lines, you actually appreciate the fact that Word or Google Doc is helping you, from an embarrassing typo. We do the same thing in the restaurant, right? We help them avoid an embarrassing mistake in performing their service.
Yeah, you also, this type of technology, I believe, the errors that are associated with what your technology is trying to mitigate must be amplified so much more with the likes of your DoorDashes and Uber Eats and all of that stuff, because there's no one there physically, right? If you're in a drive-through, you can maybe check and say, oh, I didn't order this or whatever. But when you've got a third party bringing it and you've ordered through a third party platform as well, I'm speaking from personal experience. There's so many times in the week where you have something that you didn't order, or there's an issue, or the quality's bad, or something like that.
So it's very interesting that you mentioned that, because many restaurants are actually looking at third-party delivery as the number one problem that they try to address. Which, given that it's not the overwhelming majority of the orders, yes, those are the most obvious problems, and they also relate to out-of-pocket money. Because when as a DoorDash or as an Uber Eats customer, you get something that is not exactly what you ordered, it's very easy for you on the app to go and complain, get a refund, and this refund is, paid by the restaurant, right? So this is a pressing problem for them. But I would posit that the customer that goes in the drive-thru and gets the wrong order and discover that they didn't get exactly what they wanted only after they are halfway through the sandwich, or when they reached home and they opened the bag, is an even bigger problem. Because even though they might not complain and they might not ask for a refund because it's too much of a hassle, to drive back to the restaurant and say, hey, I didn't get what I want, they will penalize the restaurant by simply visiting them less frequently. They will say, you know what, screw it, I'm not going to this place anymore. Now, any longer, it's not never, right? It's like, instead of visiting them tomorrow, I'll go there in a week or two. But meanwhile, the restaurant lost a couple of visits here, which is very painful. But going back to the third-party deliveries, our service actually extends beyond the fact that we can basically prevent those errors before they happen. We can also confirm that an order was delivered by the restaurant perfectly, and that if the guest didn't get exactly, or in this case, the customer didn't get exactly what they've asked for, the problem lies elsewhere. Maybe the driver mixed up the bag. Maybe the driver, was just hungry and, ate one of the items. This happens. This happens. So our cameras are there to prove that the order was bagged properly, right? Left the restaurant as it was intended. in those cases.
Got it. You know, I realized we jumped into this. I'm very familiar with computer vision technology, AI, and QSR, as are you. But some of our listeners might not be. So if we can give like more of a overview or deep dive into what the technology actually does, where it is implemented in, for example, the line, and how it can help impact as well. I think that would be great in layman's terms.
Sure. Yeah. Let me take a stab at that. So computer vision is a subset of artificial intelligence, right? Which is a way for computers to perform tasks that typically were done by humans. And with the use of cameras, and we use off-the-shelf, low-cost cameras, call it $50 a pop. We're not looking at some type of expensive equipment. The cameras are placed in the restaurant, in the front of house, in the back of house, wherever the use case call for them. And they are analyzing, or they're capturing everything that happens in the field of view. And then we have in the back office of each restaurant what we call an edge computer. So it's a computer that processes all those images, all those video feeds from the cameras locally in the restaurant. It's very important because lots of applications in artificial intelligence are done in the cloud, but to get to the cloud, you need to stream all the information to the cloud, and typically restaurants don't have the bandwidth to basically stream 5, 6, 10 cameras on a continuous basis to the cloud. So you cannot do the processing off-premise. You need to do the processing in the restaurant. That's where the edge device comes from. And it's a specialized device, built for AI with typically a GPU, a graphical processing unit, that crunches all those images and is able to detect things that happen in the image. So when you talk about order accuracy, when we program those edge devices, they're able to say, okay, there's a taco here, and the ingredient that was just added to the taco is black beans or pinto beans. And then, but being able to understand what's in the field of view of the cameras, we're able to validate that and basically to correlate that with the orders that are in the system. And if we see that all the tacos that have been ordered at that particular time call for pinto beans, and we see that black beans went on it, we know that the wrong recipe is being used, and we're able to stop that in real time, right? And basically send a message to the line cook saying, hey, no, that's not exactly what was ordered. You have to correct that. Generally speaking, this is the same technology that helps autonomous vehicles to, drive on roads. The same technologies that help identify all kind of issues in CCTV, etc. But there are things that we don't do that we could be doing, such as facial recognition, which is another subset of AI and computer vision. We actually blur all the faces in those cases where we do have access to images. Many of our views don't capture facial features. They come from above or just look at the hands. But in those cases, in the front of house, for example, right, when we analyze traffic in the restaurant, everything is blurred at the source. So we don't, we don't do anything that's related to personally identifiable, information.
Right. That's great. And just quick note, after people listen to this episode, please go on to agot.ai, check out the company and check out the video demo of their technology. Because I remember the first time I saw that when it was shared on LinkedIn, I was like, wow, this is amazing. This will solve a lot of problems in these restaurants. And even, again, like I talk about my time at Sweetgreen, even then, because you have people that order ahead of time to just grab and pick up. Order accuracy is such a huge thing in the industry. It's I can't express it enough. And people will know from their own experiences and their own mix-ups, the last thing you want is at lunchtime, your order to be wrong and screwing up your day, because I've seen it happen. But yeah, that leads me on to another point that you mentioned there about anything we're blurring the face and any recognizable features and things like that. Talk to me about some of the challenges, but also the opportunities for AI in quick service restaurants and in general in the space, how you see things that potentially could limit the use, or areas where you can really excel and really help people that you've already touched on some already?
Yeah, being the optimist that I am, etc., and more interested on the positive side. Let's start with the opportunities. I'll touch upon the challenges immediately after. So the opportunities are unlimited. There are so many moving parts in a restaurant in order to provide the best service at a reasonable cost to guests that we can help, as I said earlier, everywhere, in the back of house, in the front of house, in the drive-through. People that are not part of the industry don't necessarily know, but a restaurant with a drive-through generates above 70% of of their sales in the drive-through. The drive-through is not some esoteric add-on to a restaurant. That's where the business is. So many of our technologies apply both to the drive-through and inside the restaurant, right? So if we want to look at speed of service, which is how long does it take for a car in the drive-through to go to the menu board, reach the menu board if there are a few cars ahead of it, place the order, pay, get the food, leave the premises, or for a dine-in customer to enter the restaurant, stand in line, wait till they're first in line in order to place the order at the counter, and then after they place the order, wait for the food to be ready, and then either consume it, on location or off premise. So we measure all those things, and we are able, for example, to tell a restaurant that on Tuesdays, the line is so long that, every Tuesday in the afternoon, they lose 10, 15, 20 customers who enter the restaurant, see that the line is too long, and leave. So you might want on Tuesday afternoons to open a second cash register, right? So to have, 2 employees processing payment and accepting orders, because you will lose fewer customers. And even though, the minimum wage is going up and the salaries, are going to be painful, right? You need to have another employee on that shift, but maybe it's worth it because you're losing business, right? So the cameras can analyze that. But that goes back to something else that I'd be remiss not to say. Our value for restaurant is twofold. There's the pure data play. So, all the data that we accumulate that can be analyzed, slice and dice, and at the end of the day, will help, let's say, a franchisee who might own 20 restaurants to get a better understanding of why this restaurant on Main Street that they own is not performing as well as that other restaurant on State Street, even though, same traffic, same everything. With the data that they get from us, they'll be able to have a point of view, right, on what needs to be ameliorated. Is it the guest experience? Is it the speed of service? Is this the accuracy of the orders, etc.? So that's kind of the offline, not real-time type of data play. There's another element of it, and we talked a lot about order accuracy, is the prompt in real time to the restaurant employee, not the manager, right? The person in the restaurant right now to say, hey, you need to pay attention to this, or you need to correct that. And that's a separate value proposition that's really not about gaining long-term insights, but in the moment, right? It's stuff that you can, in the moment, allow you to perform a better job. So this is delivered through existing systems that they have, right? There are already a number of monitors, etc., in the restaurant, and we can pop up those messages. Cleanliness is a very important element. One of our products look at trash bins, restrooms, not inside the restrooms. So rest assured, we're not spying on people, who need privacy. But we can count the number of people going to the men's room in a quick service restaurant, and we can raise a flag saying, 10 people have gone to the restroom. It's time to send an employee to go and clean and make sure that the 11th, guest that would visit them would see something clean. So all those prompts in real time to empty this, clean that, send somebody to the drive-through to help with orders because the lines are accumulating. Those are real-time prompts that we provide to the restaurant.
That's amazing. There are so many moving parts in a restaurant that I think the general public take for granted, thinking about whether it's like food prep, the cooking, obviously the front of house service and cleanliness, you don't think about those things, plus throwing in the drive-through as well as in-restaurant experience. It's like...
For sure. Yeah. I've been a foodie my entire life, so I enjoyed restaurant, both QSRs and all the way to Michelin starred restaurant. But it's only about 15 years ago when I started working with restaurants, providing them technology, that I got exposed to what happens inside the restaurant in order for all, this magic to happen.
Yeah.
And this is much more complex than one would think, without being exposed to that. I actually started restaurant by working with McDonald's. I developed I had a startup that developed the first mobile app for McDonald's. And through this McDonald's relationship, I understood that there's an old science to how those restaurants are managed. Our system of restaurants, thousands and thousands of locations for a chain, our quality is assured, etc. And the interesting part is that computer vision can play a role in virtually every one of those aspects of our restaurant operates. So the sky's the limit. So I talked a little bit about opportunity, but you also asked about the challenges.
Yes.
So the challenges are first, one is the connectivity, right? So we overcome this problem of most restaurants, or at least a lot of them, have very limited internet connectivity. And our solution for that is this edge computer that resides in the restaurant and does all the processing locally without relying on connectivity to the cloud. Another one is cost. Restaurants are very, very cost sensitive. The margins are thin. And therefore, one of the challenges that we have to overcome is, yes, you could put a supercomputer in every restaurant and solve all the problems, but it will not be affordable. So one of our claim to fame is that the bill of material when you work with us is very low. We use low-cost computers, low-cost cameras, power over Ethernet, which means that the cabling between the computer and the cameras is basically the same cable that you hook to your printer. It's not a high-power, high-voltage installation, so you don't need to have an expensive installation with technicians that are certified to work with high voltage, etc. So we basically managed to reduce the cost of installation and the cost of hardware to something that's very affordable for a restaurant. And frankly, for us, that's not where we want to make our money, right? We are a software company. So eventually the monthly fee, the software as a service fee that restaurants are paying us in order to enjoy the services that we provide, this is where we want to make the money. And therefore, reducing the cost of installation of equipment is a benefit for our customers and for ourselves.
Yeah. It's a huge investment at the end of the day, or a huge return on investment, shall I say, because you think about lifetime customer value, also repeat business, and then all of those refunds that the restaurant has to eat up regardless,
No, absolutely. And we try to help restaurants, both on the top line, so helping them get more sales through speed of service, guest satisfaction, etc., but also to reduce the costs.
Yeah.
Some of the things that we do may reduce labor, right? So if instead of sending an employee to clean restrooms on a schedule, you clean them only when it's needed, this employee has more time to do other things, and therefore you can reduce labor. Again, just an example. And we also have a product that helps them with food waste, which is another cost factor. So in quick service restaurant, you cannot cook to order everything because some items have a prep time that's too long, right? So if you're a chicken concept, you don't want to start frying the chicken when the customer appears in the drive-thru because you cannot tell them, wait 15 minutes, we'll have fried chicken for you. So all those concepts have, a frying schedule. And I'm talking about chicken, but it's the same for donuts. It's the same for, baking, cooking, and frying. But let's stay on chicken for a second, if I may.
I like
chicken. Who doesn't like fried chicken, right? So they typically, every chicken concept have a frying schedule, which is based on past sales, right? So last Tuesdays, around noon with 20 customers. So this Tuesday, we might also have 20 customers. So let's, at 11:45, start putting 20 pieces of chicken in the fryer so that at noon, we'll have those pieces ready. We can adjust those forecasts in real time based on what the cameras are seeing, right? So we may know, yes, you have a forecast for 20 customers asking for chicken, but right now you have 5 pieces that are still fresh, ready to sell on the tray, and your drive-thru is empty and your dining area is empty. So the likelihood of you needing all those 20 pieces is very low. Fry only 5, right, to be on the safe side. And now you have 10 pieces of chicken that didn't, got wasted. So it's good for them. It's good for the environment, right? We throw away less food. And, done right, it can also guarantee a fresher product for customers. So that's a very exciting product as well.
Does it take into account things like weather?
Yes, but that's not our expertise. So our expertise is to take the baseline forecast that they have, which I mentioned it's based on past sales, but yes, it takes other things into, the better concept. Some concepts are more naive about it, but if you're a smart chicken concept, you will take into consideration past sales, the weather today versus the weather, in those days, and adjust accordingly. And then local events, right? So if a soccer game, is ending in the high school, on this week and didn't happen last week, then you will have more visitors. So that's kind of the baseline forecast. What we do is we take the baseline forecast and based on what the cameras are seeing on the shelf, right, the ready-to-sell product in the drive-thru and in the dining area, we adjust those forecasts, right? And we can typically pare them down and say, hey, you are overly optimistic and fry a little bit less.
That's awesome. Well, this is really exciting technology. For anyone that is in the space who understands computer vision, AI, the applications, I'm sure, the general public are becoming so much more aware of AI these days because of, ChatGPT and everything like that. It's in the press, it seems like every other day. But there's applications in, honestly, every industry. Is there anything that you want to share before we wrap up and give any final thoughts?
No, I think it's a very exciting time to be in the space. And the opportunities are limitless, right? So for us as a startup, it's more about focusing on not our ideas, but what we see that the market, could be helped with. And it's about triage, right? Like we could do all those things. So we are kind of gravitating toward, applications that are common to a large number of concepts. And also, while all those ideas, one could have come up with them 5, 10, 15 years ago, the technology was not there, right? So being able, without having a supercomputer that's out of the reach of a local franchisee, being able to really analyze those images and see the difference between, rice and beans is something that was simply not possible 5 years ago. And now it is. But I think that our advantage is that we understand restaurants deeply, right? It's not a generic computer vision technology. It's computer vision technology that is tailored to the environment in which our customers operate. So we have multiple people that have restaurant background in the company, and everything that we do is geared towards addressing the problems that the industry is facing.
Love that. Thank you. Well, look, thank you again for joining me, Daniel. I really enjoyed this conversation. I was very much aware of what you guys do, but hearing it, the refreshed side of it and right from your mouth is perfect. And it's like really making me excited to see this in action in restaurants and chains that I know. From my own personal takeaway from this, Samson Rose, we focus on robotics and AI industry, helping hire across that space. And a lot of people are always worried about AI and robots taking over jobs and, making people redundant. But this is a clear example of how it can just empower, make service better, make experience better from an employee standpoint, as well as a customer standpoint. And if you think about the convergence of the two, robotics and AI, especially in the restaurant world, if you throw robotics in to help with like cook and food prep and AI to help to make sure that the quality is there and the consistency is there and the cleanliness is there, you're going to get much better service. You're going to have engaged and happy staff. Your turnover will be less. And at the end of the day, from a business standpoint, your revenue is going to be higher. So I don't see any reason why people should be worried about it or reluctant to use it. Apart from, like you mentioned, restaurants have very small margins and cost is normally the main hurdle to overcome. But outside of that, I mean, what more could you want, really?
No, absolutely nothing.
Exactly.
Yeah,
exactly. Well, look, I invite all the listeners to learn more about the company. Please go to agot.ai. Daniel, is there anywhere that they can find you, find out more about your background, your story?
Well, they could hit me on LinkedIn. So it's Daniel Dreymann, Dreymann. But, just through the website, we will be happy to engage with any of your listeners.
Perfect. Thanks again, Daniel. Till next time.
Thank you.
Take care.